This is On Diversity, a podcast series by the Institute of Policy Studies, Singapore. This is the second season, and I'm your host, Liang Kaixin, Associate Director of IPS and also a former journalist. Today's episode is on the young and the old, and we have Dr Kanwaljit Soin and Dr Teo Kay Key here. Dr. Soin is an orthopedic and hand surgeon, a former NMP, and the founding president of the Society for Women's Initiative for Aging Successfully, WINGS. Dr. Teo Kay Key is research fellow at the IPS Social Lab. Welcome to the podcast today. I have a question for both of you. Okay, Dr. Teo is quite young, right?
Yeah.
And Dr. Soin, we'll call her Kani today. You are in your...
I'm 79.
Wow. Really? Okay. So, I just want to ask a question for both of you. What do you think are some of the differences in values between the young and the old?
Well, I don't think it's a question of age alone. It's more a question of maybe socioeconomic differences, different cultural, upbringing. I don't think age is, to my mind, the main reason why people have different values. What do you think, Kay Key?
I actually agree. So we did the World Values Survey, and even when we compare what we did in 2020 versus the results in 2012 and 2002, there were already differences in the types of values. So, for example, when parents were asked what kind of values they want their children to learn, having a sense of responsibility was always there. However, things like obedience actually went down the ranks. So fewer parents wanted their children to learn obedience compared to things like responsibility and maybe things like other things. So it's probably a result of the era and the time period rather than actual age. So age is what we call maybe a proxy to measure what different generations or different eras or time periods value in a person.
But Kay Key, your World Value Survey actually have some discrepancies on age also, right?
Yes, that's correct. So, even though eras are different, but we also can see that the younger are also slightly more liberal in the sense that they are more accepting of different types of values and lifestyles. There are a few ways to look at this. So one is really age, like young people are more accepting. But the other way of looking at it is that we are now living in a time of change. So there's a lot more things that we are exposed to. So when the younger people now, they grow up in these kinds of environment compared to their older generations where they don't see as many of these things, all these experiences will change how they feel about different types of things. Yeah. So
and social media has got a lot to do with the difference, I think. So older people who are active in social media may have values akin to the younger ones. So that's another area that makes a difference, I think.
I see. But do you think the younger people are more liberal compared to the old, as what Kay Key said just now?
I think yes. Because you see, if you look at the older people in Singapore, especially the pre-boomers, what they call the pioneer and the Merdeka generation, many of them were not educated so highly. For example, in my cohort, only 1% of women went to university. So, of course, education and then socioeconomic background does have a difference, makes a difference in what values and norms you hold dear. So, but you are right, Kaixin, that there are, of course, some differences due to age, with the younger, the unmarried ones feeling a bit more carefree, feeling more magnanimous and generous to everybody. And then you grow older, you want your children to have, you become more strict with the children's upbringing. So your values tend to change. But of course, you're right that there is an age difference. I cannot disagree with that.
Yeah, actually, I would think that life stage also makes a difference, because when you're a student, you don't have many responsibilities. Of course, you're going to be very welcoming to a lot of things and be open to different kinds of experiences. But when, for example, in Singapore, you are already at an age where you have a family, you need to pay your housing loan, you need to pay your children's tuition fees, then all these things will start going, put on the back burner. You think about, I need to make sure that the world is friendly enough so that I can make my way and I can make sure that my children have a future to look forward to.
So do you think then, Kay Key
Yes.
and Kaixin, that life stage makes more of a difference on values than age?
I think it does make a difference. I mean, like, if you don't have kids, you will think that, life is carefree and you will be more reckless with your money, or maybe you are more open-minded. But perhaps, I don't have kids, but what I do observe from my friends who have kids going to school and all that, they tend to become more conservative, because I guess they need to think more, they need to be more careful, they need to worry about their family, their finances, how their kids are going to school. They start worrying that their kids may have exposure to bad influences. So I feel that perhaps there's a difference.
Yeah, when you want to protect the younger generation especially, then you want, what you feel are harmful or negative influences to be kept away. So that maybe also make people a bit more conservative, as well as their upbringing.
And here, Kaixin, I want to propose something, because, older people are going to live longer and keep healthier and younger. So age and life stage need not coincide. If we look at this new hypothesis of the 100-year life, right now we are leading life in 3 stages. First stage, you go to school and get educated. Second stage, you earn a living. You generally have a family and earn for the future. And the final stage where you retire. But if you're going to live 100 or more than which I think both of you younger people are going to do so, then life can no longer be just a 3-stage life. It has to be a multi-stage life. And then you go back, after you've, at 40 or 45, you may want to go back to university or to some other institution to upgrade yourself. Then you may want to retire for a while. Then you may want to do volunteering, and then have children at an early stage, and then go to school, or have children after finishing university and then start a family. So this multi-stage life, it'll be interesting to observe when that happens, whether people's values change with each stage of their life, or it keeps going, changes by becoming more conservative as we grow older.
Kani, you raised a very interesting point that, people are growing older and there's lifelong learning. But I guess I'm thinking aloud now. Okay, we are in the podcast. Of course, we are all thinking aloud. Yeah, but perhaps like many years ago, like people who are 50 and above, we already consider them old. But right now, what's the concept of old? I have friends who are 50 and they'll get very angry if I ever say that they are old.
You don't have to go to them. I'll be very angry when you call me old. Because when you are 30, you think someone who is 50 is old.
Correct.
When you're middle-aged, you think someone who is 65 is old. And I'm going to be 80 in 2 months' time. I don't feel old. I still feel like I'm 55. And to me, someone is old not because of their age, but because of their functional incapacity. When they can't walk, they can't look after themselves, then I think of them more as being old.
I see. But so you also think that it's more of a kind of mindset, is it?
Of course. You see, when did people start, in the pre-industrial societies, most people didn't know how old they were. They put a mark on the tree. But it's only only when people started registering births by having birth certificates that chronological age became important. And unfortunately, now chronological age has become far too important than it deserves to be, because we are ignoring biological age, we are ignoring functional age, we are ignoring cultural age, societal age, because some people, when you're 50 and you dress up, they say, "Ayya, shouldn't dress up so old and still want to use lipstick or color your hair." So I think we really have to think this chronological age has become far too important. It decides when we retire, it decides how we behave in society. So we need to have a rethink about age, chronological age.
Kanye, I'll get back to you on this point, but I want to go to Kay Key first, because we were talking about generation gaps and understanding, and we do see more or less somehow there is still a difference between like the young and the old and how they think, their values. So what do you think are some ways that we can bridge this gap?
I think for a start, whatever kind of ism that we are talking about, the kind of discrimination, right? It usually starts from a us versus them kind of attitude. So you have one group of people who categorize themselves as we are one group, and then they view the others as outsiders. So that's how things start when, you start to look at one group as they are not the same, and the not the same is something bad. So that starts with that starts a lot of antagonism, a lot of arguments, complaints. So that's how we see things like boomer, millennial, all these terms come up.
Boomer is such a terrible term.
Yeah, as a negative connotation kind of thing. When actually in the past, boomer was just baby boomer, right?
Yeah.
There was no, kind of positive or negative.
Right now it's just
label.
an insult.
Yeah. So, it doesn't even need to be a chronologically aged boomer. It just needs to be someone who's conservative or resistant to change. Then you just say that they are boomer. So, in terms of the generation gap, of course, there are differences in ideas because, like I said, the different experiences, right? But how we can try to bridge is to not look at the other as an adversary, but to talk about it. Because like we see from the World Value Survey, there are also things that people agree on. So for example, they all agree that family is important. So if we start from the different age groups in our own family or, in our extended family, and we start talking things out, maybe things would be slightly less combative, and there would be not so much as a gap, but a bridge.
I can think of, besides your very good suggestion of looking at the family, I can think of some more concrete ways of bridging the age gap.
Sure.
One is we can have senior care centers and student care centers co-located, or childcare centers, so that there is much more interaction. I can think, educational institutions have become so age segregated. Now, if in some educational institutions we have a course on astronomy, now everyone will be interested, the children, the middle-aged, and the older people, and so we can have them all together, interacting together. We always talk of this having a kampong. Now, a kampong is exactly where you have age integration. But now because of the way, as we talked earlier about stages in life, when you're young, you're in school. After that, you are at work, or you are bringing up a family, and then you're retired. Now, these three stages, they lead to segregation. And that's why a multi-stage life is going to help in age integration much better.
Can you explain more about the multi-stage life? I think you were mentioning it just now also.
Well, you see, because if we are going to live to only 75 or 80, yes, you retire at 65, you live for another 10 or 15 years, and then you die.
That's it, right?
Yes. So that's convenient for everybody, on the whole. I mean, I'm talking from a demographic angle. But if you're going to live to 100 years, and as it is, the retirement age is only going to go up to 65 in 2030, and then you'll have another 35 years to live. Now, what are you going to do with that? So many years, not only you're going to live, you're going to have to be able to financially be able to make sure that those years are covered. So in a multi-stage life, you sort of maybe after you're at 20 or 21, you decide, okay, I want to go and start a family. You get married, you have kids, and then when you're 35, you can go to university then and start working. Then at about
you have kids first before you go to university.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Why not?
And how are you going to support them?
Well, the kids now, primary education is free and you don't talk about tuition and all that, And grandparents can chip in to help to bring up the kids. And then after that, you go to university, you start a career, then you work till you're about 60, 65. Then you have another short period when you decide you want to retire or you want to do volunteering work or you want to travel. And then after that, you come back, you get a job skilled. We have so much of what we call our future skills upgrading. And then you decide you want to become an entrepreneur. You bake cakes at home or you go and mentor kids or you take them out on some trips. So this way, the age and the stage will be so much better. And then there will not be this ageism. Because right now, people think of old people as retired, dependent, disease, dementia. All these horrible words come into mind. So this is where I think ageism, we can abolish it by having this multi-stage life.
Actually, I would like to give an alternative suggestion. Instead of a multi-stage life, we can look at overlapping stages instead. Because we don't need to do one thing at a time. Nowadays, people like to do multi-hyphenates, right? So you can go study and work at the same time, or go study and have your children at the same time, or any kind of other combinations. So actually that might also, open up people's experiences more. But of course, we are speaking from maybe a point of slightly more privilege because we assume that there's no other responsibilities that they have to take care of at the back of their minds. So, yeah.
But that's also a good idea. That I would think is like age blending.
Yes.
Where you can. But nowadays, people can do that. More than 50% of our population goes to university or polytechnic. There are so many. So the younger people are getting very educated. And so I think with some help from the state in the sense that, making education much more, it is actually very affordable. People can do more than one thing at a time, as you said, Kay Key. I think that's a good idea too.
Okay, so I think you're alluding to lifelong learning, skills future and all that. But, from my observations from some of my older friends, they do face some difficulties when they are trying to learn new things when they're older. What's your advice for them?
Well, you see, it depends. Now, there are two types of intelligence. We call it fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence.
Okay.
Now, fluid intelligence is most when you are young and until you become an adult, maybe up to your age and Kay Key's age, because that helps you to process information very quickly and you remember things. Then there's crystallized intelligence, which only increases as you grow older. And crystallized intelligence allows you to draw on your life experiences so your decisions could be more considered and there could be an element of wisdom. So, but right now, with our technological age, fluid intelligence is given much more, precedence than crystallized intelligence. And so, in a way, that makes our society, the social capital of our society is depleted because we are not adding on these two types of intelligence. But the other thing, if I may come back to you, Kaixin,
sure,
is that there is a lot of ageism at the workplace. In Singapore, as we said, the World Values Survey showed that family is very important. So within the family, I don't think there is ageism where young people want to care for the older people and older people love the younger ones. But at the workplace in Singapore, that's where ageism is felt most. And it even starts even before you become old. If you, after the age of 40 or 45, it's already so difficult to find a job. So I don't know what you want to call it, ageism or youthism.
Kay Key, do you have any survey results about this?
About
Workplace discrimination?
there's only results about whether people feel work is important.
Okay.
So younger people are more likely to say that work is not the be all and end all. There are other things more important in life. So that's the only kind of result that we have from the survey. But then I would also like to counter Kani's point of view with my own experience.
Sure.
So there is definitely ageism for older workers, but even for the younger workers, there's also ageism. So at the two extremes, I think people are not as nice. So when I first stepped into the working world, I had to do some projects and had to give suggestions or recommendations to older colleagues. So these people were like old enough to be my parents. So they were not very accepting, because they
think you're a kid.
Yeah, like who are you to tell me what to do, you know? So there were quite a few obstacles in my way just to get through to them, to get the suggestions through to them. So there was also this kind of, would you call it reverse ageism or also ageism?
No, you're quite right. I mean, it's ageism, because ageism is when you discriminate, or or you have negative stereotypes based on age. It doesn't necessarily have to be old. You're right. But in your case, for example, and that is more snobbishness.
Or is it seniority based?
Yes, seniority based, and a little bit of feeling a little bit not so secure about their own job, and this bright young woman, and you're such a small built person too, that makes them feel, what can she teach me?
Yeah, maybe.
But I go back to the point about ageism in the workplace. I think it is definitely true. I mean, I see friends who are in their mid-40s. If they don't become like management level and all that, it's very easy for them to fall out from the workforce. They can't find a job. They end up doing casual jobs or go into Grab, the
gig economy.
The gig economy. I think that's actually quite a very serious problem, right?
Actually, you're definitely right, because the gig economy should actually be managed by people who are older, because then they don't need a steady income. They don't need a steady job, and they can work on and off. While when young people do the gig economy, they don't have CPF. They don't progress in the workplace. So what are they going to do for their old age? So this whole concept of gig economy being done by the younger people is something we need to rethink.
Yeah, so I think there's different types of young. So let's say if they're 20s, then they might go into the gig economy because they see that it's a good way to earn a lot of money without having to pay CPF from their pay and all that. But those in the 40s, I think they are sort of like the sandwich generation, right? They might have kids to take care of, and they have old parents to look after, and yet they are being discriminated in the workplace. They can't find like your full-time jobs to earn a more stable income. I think that's actually quite a serious problem, like.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think that's, and I think we have to think of what are we going to do about that in Singapore. I mean, one thing we could do is what you were suggesting earlier, Kay Key, that if you're doing the gig economy and studying at the same time, that's fine. But if you're doing nothing but just working in the gig economy and you're already in the, having kids or older people to look after, then it becomes quite precarious.
Actually, for the 40 plus, that the middle management level kind of workers, what Kani said about the crystallized intelligence would actually make a lot of sense, because they are the ones who hold the experience, and they know what to do like when sudden scenarios crop up, right? Which young experienced, or maybe not young experienced, but inexperienced people in that industry would not be able to do.
Yeah, what we call institutional memory is what older people would have.
So if you are by choice in a gig economy, that's fine. But if you are forced into the gig economy because you can't find another job that you prefer, then that would be a sort of a problem, because we would have sort of a gap in the middle where we only have the younger workers in the big companies and the older workers in the higher management positions, but we don't have that middle portion where it's very important to be the bridge, whether, to actually they would be able to help resolve the ageism thing, because they are the ones who are, talking. I mean, they are older and younger at the same time, So they can probably be that kind of linkage, and also, pass the knowledge down onwards.
Yeah, and also diversity in not just gender and multi-ethnicity, but in age will lead to better answers. More if you have diversity in the age in the working place, people come up with as better. Everybody knows that diverse workplaces are more productive, they are more profitable. So that's why we do need all the age ranges in a workplace.
Kani, so what do you think, how can we improve this in situation, how do we reduce ageism in the workplace? What are some things we can do? Well,
ageism in the workplace, it's got more, first of all, is education. Education in general, part of when we are in school, when you're everywhere. But this is a more, a human resource problem. It is the human resource managers who are actually quite young themselves or middle-aged, and they are the ones that may discriminate against older people. So I think we need to, first of all, and also policymakers and media, because up to now, I'm not talking so much about the younger ones in the gig economy, I'm talking about the older people. Older people, we've always referred to this tsunami, the old age is coming upon Singapore and we are all going to sink under this tsunami. There'll be so many dependent people. So I think first we need to remove these negative images of old age. In fact, when you look at it, what combines us all, every human being, is old age. We can't change our gender, we can't change our race, we can't change our sexuality, but what old age is something that's common to all of us. So it is something that we should treasure, we should share, we should talk about, and it should help in generational solidarity. So I think it is not, it has to be this favorite term, whole of society education. It's whole of nation, whole of society, to be able to understand that only the lucky grow old, And so old age is something to look forward to capitalize on, to lean on, and to be, to something to look forward to.
Actually, I would think people are looking forward to their old age because they want to retire.
Really? But in Singapore, there's always this term, right? You can grow old, but you can't fall sick, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So actually, it's the healthcare costs, even though we do have a lot of insurance coverage. But pertaining to the previous point, right, about the HR issue, I actually agree, because there have been times when, it's cost-cutting measures, so people let the more senior one go from the company, and then they hire the cheaper ones, which are the inexperienced and usually the younger ones. So as a result, we have the more experienced people without a job, and they have to ask for a similar pay, right? Because they have been used to that kind of income, but they wouldn't be able to get one because there are younger and cheaper ones out there who also want the same job.
True. I think there's also an issue. I think what you're mentioning is also if these people get laid off, they might be underemployed actually, right? Their potential is not maximized.
Actually, that's what's happening in the gig economy too, that most people are underemployed,
They're not utilizing their brains.
Their skills and what they have been trained for.
Yes.
So I really think this is something the policymakers will have to start thinking about,
I think they've been thinking about it for quite a while, right? Just that it's a really complicated issue.
Yes.
I do have a question for Kani, because
sure.
I can't remember, I think in her book or somewhere, she said that, it's not really just chronological age that's the issue. It's also biological age, because people age at different paces. So if that's the case, right, with the 65 retirement age, if you don't want that to be the marker, then how can we, look at that issue and, come up with a more holistic kind of marker to mark retirement?
Yeah, I mean, before I try to answer the difficult question, but you see, first of all, by bringing retirement age from now till now is 62, I think, to 2030 will be 65. Now, it means in 10 years, we have only increased the retirement age by 3 years and the re-employment age by 3 years. But we know the lifespan is increasing. And it's well known that every 10 years, lifespan increases by 3 years at least. So by increasing the retirement and re-employment age by 3 years in the next 10 years, you're not doing anything fabulous. You're just keeping up with the longevity. That's one thing to say about my what I think about this increase in retirement and re-employment age. The second thing, as you said, Kay Key, is that most people who are 65 now, they feel they behave and they are biologically like people who were 50 years old about a few decades ago. In Japan, the 80-year-old present person is considered to be a 65-year-old because health, not only have we improved our lifespan, but our health span has improved as well. In Singapore, actually, we are on the top. I mean, I'm not talking about the COVID situation now. We are near the top of the charts where life expectancy and health expectancy is concerned. And usually, in Singapore especially, we are only sick for about 10 years of our life, the last 10 years of our life. So if we are going to be living to 85 to 90 years old, then we should not retire before 75 or 80. So because we are only going to be sick in the last 10 years of life. So this whole thing about, so coming back to your question, Kay Key, is quite simple. I mean, we could do a physical exam of a person, make them do a few sit-ups and make them walk a certain distance if they can do that. Or you can even do some mental test if you want to. And if you find that they pass that with flying colors, then strike off the chronological age from their IC and put in their biological age. Of course, we'll have to make some new biomarkers for that.
I think they do have a test for taxi drivers, right? Once they reach like 72 or 75, they have to pass some health tests in order to continue to drive.
Well, it's only just eyesight, I think, isn't it? And
really?
as long as they can walk from there, to the taxi inside, I don't think we really, because even for our driving license, it's the same.
Yes.
Basically, so we all have to go for this kind of, and then the general practitioner will just ask you, are you okay, blah, blah, blah. But I think to make it much more refined, where we can then decide that, this older person definitely should not be retired now. We should beg them not to retire at 65 or 68 and continue using. But of course, one thing about old age and retirement, if I may say that, is that we don't want to make people who are older work the whole day long. This is where I think we want to give them part-time jobs, work, half a time or something like that. Because as you said, Kay Key, you do want to look forward to old age where you are not working so hard. So I think older people are capable of working, doing the same job they're doing, but not at the same rate and the same pace.
But Kani, is there a divide? If we are doing white-collar jobs, it will be easier for older workers to continue. But if it's very taxing, like physical manual labor, Will that be a deterrence for them?
Of course, you're right. For people who are doing, I mean, like even now, if you are in the army, they retire you when you're 45.
Yeah, that's really young.
So there is already a differential retirement age, because they I don't know whether they think the generals need to be younger or whatever. So similarly, of course, you must have a lower retirement age for people who are doing manual work. But I am hoping that with technology, with our new AI and robotic age, there will come a time when most manual work and hard work will be given to machines, and human beings won't have to do that. But before that happens, you're right, of course, we must let people who do manual jobs retire earlier. But even the white-collar jobs, an older person does not want to work from 9 to 5 days a week. They want a bit more time. They may want to spend with their grandchildren. They may want to go and volunteer. They may want to travel. They may want to do their bucket list, which they never had time to fulfill in their younger days.
So, actually, that's a way to bridge the generation divide, because the younger people also want more leisure time.
so everyone just do part-time, right?
Yes. So maybe we can have, an older person and a younger person
sharing a job.
Oh, yeah. Actually, that's a concept, right? I mean, they already had this concept for married women with kids, right? To do like job share and all that. Actually, that's one way to do this, right? So job share between the young and the old.
Yeah, whoever wants.
And another concept, another thing I just thought of, older people, they have apartments, HDB apartments or other kinds of home, but they don't have enough money. So they could then, and younger people often are looking for places to stay outside the family, not with their parents. So older people who have a 3-room, 4-room apartment could rent a room to some younger person at a lower rate, so that the younger person could then look after them, change the bulbs, or repair the doorknobs or whatever it is, or run errands for them. And that could be another intergenerational program.
Actually, I heard of this program in Japan. They actually do that. Yeah. But I'm not sure whether is it feasible in Singapore.
I mean, if you do that here, then people would say, why don't you just stay at your parents' house and help them do these things?
No, but that's a different relationship, because first of all, in your parents' home, there may be other siblings, and parents may want you to do this or that. While if you stay with an older person who the two of you like each other, then there is much more synergy and, get along well with each other than be stuck in a parent's home if you feel you want to move out.
Okay. So it's a choice for you to, explore.
Yes.
Okay. But I just want to go back to the retirement and re-employment age once more, because I think when you talk about like lifting the retirement age, right, inevitably there'll be a lot of people who are very angry about it. They're like, oh my God, Singapore is trying to make me work forever, not giving me back my CPF. What's your thoughts about it?
No, but you see, your CPF, you can withdraw a certain amount at 55, and then you can opt out at 65. You can opt in at 65. You want to start getting something back. If you want higher returns, you can keep it up to 70. So it has got nothing to do with when we retire. In fact, that's why sometimes there is a problem in most other countries where welfare states, where retirement and pensions coexist. That is when younger people get angry, when there's so many retirees. In Singapore, where younger people don't really have to bear the cost of retirement, and everyone is trying to, save money and prepare for retirement, it doesn't matter, because in Singapore, you can give, I have 3 people who work with me in my medical practice. I can give them not few months notice, and they can leave, and they can do the same to me. So you don't have to wait for retirement age. You can retire anytime you like, if you think that it is, you are financially or otherwise you are ready for it. So retirement age in Singapore has got nothing to do with CPF. So I really don't understand why we need a retirement age in Singapore, because people can leave the job anytime they like.
I think the Manpower Minister recently said that the retirement age is actually there to help to keep the elderly employed, right?
Well, when you look at how many people over 45 cannot find a job, I think that is wishful thinking on his part.
Okay. I guess it will benefit those who are probably still employed at a pretty secure level. Could I say that?
If they're doing a good job and the employer is happy with them, then there will be no reason to ask them to retire. But if they're not doing a good job, then and I think it's not so easy to prove that that you are being dismissed, because either the employer can say, well, you're not up to the job anymore, and I want you to leave. So I think this is a bit debatable, that the retirement age keeps people longer on the job than they would be. I think that is a debatable point.
But I think there's also the issue of meritocracy also, right? I mean, I think, Kani, you mentioned about if the elderly person is not performing at the job, the employer can ask the elderly person to leave. But is there some leeway we should give? Like, let's say, to give them more help, or to be kinder to them, or have a lower standard for them in order to keep them around the workplace? Is there a need for this?
Do we know many corporations that are so compassionate? I mean,
that's why I'm asking.
I would think, so far, and this is where, it's the bottom line that matters for most corporations, you see.
Yeah.
Of course, now they're becoming much more green conscious. Hopefully they'll become more, conscious of elderly people as well. But on the whole, I mean, of course, the human resource management could then, persuade them to take another course which could be useful to the corporation. That, of course, the human resource people could do that. But on the whole, when it comes to business, I think the bottom line is profit. And if you're not a useful member of the organization, well, then you have to leave. That's reality.
Kay Key, what do you think?
I think for private corporations, it's always the bottom line, right? And like I said just now, older or more senior employees take a higher pay. So it's easier to just let the higher paid ones leave.
Will it help if they take a pay?
So that's what the re-employment policies are for, right? They have to take a pay cut, and also supposedly do slightly less than what they used to do. So that was what it was supposed to help in. But
Kay Key, didn't you hear some stories from universities, lecturers and professors, whoever, when they are re-employed, often they have to do the same job but at a lower pay. So again, you are more or less at the mercy of your employer. You're more or less.
So that was actually my point that I was getting at, because it's very subjective. First of all, evaluation of your work performance is subjective. The amount of work that you do is also subjective, because, for example, as a university lecturer, if maybe they say, instead of 3 classes, I'm going to let you teach 2 classes, but they give you a lot of other appointments like student counselor, take care of certain CCA groups, which you never had to do before, then is that, your
workload is higher?
Yeah, is
actually
that the same amount of workload, or actually even higher? So you also cannot really tell, because these things, it's very hard to quantify. So but you can definitely see your salary numbers. So that's the only thing that you can quantify. Other than that, it's really quite difficult. Even if you say, I spend 8 hours preparing lectures versus 10 hours working for the CCA, no one will really be able to check whether that's true or not. So,
And that's the other thing that makes me wonder, why don't we just have a retirement age rather than a re-employment age? Put up the retirement age to, where the re-employment age is, and one age, and be done with it, and that will help to keep people in the jobs longer, if that is the intention of this Retirement and Re-employment Act.
But There's another point also. I think there's a recent forum letter, right? It says that, if the elderly are like occupying like positions that and they don't leave to make space for the younger generations to move up.
Yeah, well, that, you see, of course, that could be a valid argument, but that used to be the argument when women went into the workforce, that women were were taking jobs that could be given to men. So if you are a good economist, you will say that the pie has to be made bigger, not that the pie has to be shared among more people. So if the economy keeps growing, then new jobs should be created, new jobs that will suit younger people more than the older people. And then, that's something that could happen. And the other thing, of course, is tenure. If professors are given, or senior positions in the university are given tenure, then they're never going to leave until they die. But if you give them contracts for their seniority, then younger people can move up to those posts. There are different ways of doing this thing where you allow, new blood to slowly take over an older blood. There are ways of doing this.
I think the issue is suitability of the job with the person, but the issue is you don't usually see the best fit for the job being in that position.
It's too idealistic.
Yeah. So of course, the policies can do one thing, but how humans want to interpret it is another way, because you will always have all the real world considerations come in. For example, if this person has been there in the job for a very, very long time and thinks that they can continue, but other people feel that, the performance has been slightly dropping every year, that how do you tell that person to, maybe it's time to teach younger ones or a newer ones.
Or let go.
Yes. So there's also, the human emotions involved that sometimes make all these criteria or policies difficult to implement ideally in real life.
Definitely. That's why they coined the expression, there's a slip between the cup and the lip, Obviously, you're perfectly right. This is what happens. But this again then comes to us to a broader thinking of what we are going to do with older people who are still healthy, who are still capable of work. What is it? Can we start like they had the Peace Corps? Can we have the mentorship corps? Older people who go around are happy to mentor people or show some skills to younger people, or not necessarily younger, but newer people on the job. So we need to think of a role for older, healthy people who still have skills and knowledge to impart, but have to retire from the workforce for some reason or other.
Yeah, I think the experience, the transmission of experience is very important, because when you don't have that kind of experience or institutional knowledge, sometimes it's all in one individual's mind, right? Then when the individual is away for some reason, you all scramble because nobody knows what to do.
What's going on.
Yeah, where to find the required information. So that's very important. And I guess for the institution or even for, just a group of people, it's always important to share knowledge. And it's not like I share the knowledge with you, then I become useless. But it's more like we are sharing it and making the knowledge pie grow bigger in that sense.
Okay. So I would like to conclude now. I'm just wondering, what are some of your wish lists to help to end or reduce ageism in Singapore?
Well, I think two things: education and working education and age segregation in all the institutions, whether they are public institutions, colleges, whether they are childcare centers. So more of in fact, we could start a plan whenever anybody asks for money for older people or for younger people to start some program, only give the money if there's an intergenerational component.
Wow.
Because then, life, we grew up in a family. There's always an intergenerational interdependence. And so if you make sure that all the new initiatives that start that only have to do with young people or with older people, make sure there's an intergenerational component. And that will get us thinking and coming out some with very innovative thoughts. I think that's one. And the second thing I have is there is no need to put our age on the identity card if you're over 18 or over 21.
What?
There's no age. Why is it important to have an age on our identity card? In what way? So if you're over 21, whatever you're doing is legal. You're no longer. So why does it matter whether you're 45, you're 82?
How will we know whether we need boosters or not?
That is fine. The boosters you can have, your age, so you can, but you don't need it. It's like I often say, why do you need ethnicity on your identity card? Well, how does ethnicity help, whether you're Indian or Malay or Chinese? So similarly, there should be, if you must know your age, of course, for medical reasons, but on the whole, except for boosters, which is because of COVID, there's really no need to have your age. And now even boosters is coming for the younger ones, all right? So the younger ones are not going to be exempt. Eventually, everybody will need boosters, whether you're old or young. So I think is on my wish list, even though it may sound practical for the time being.
Kani's wish list is practical. My wish list is idealistic.
Okay, what are they? I'm a bit worried to hear about it.
Just one word, respect. So, the problem with people calling ageism out as a problem is because you are not respecting each other, right? So if we can, sometimes I am also guilty of this. Like I will judge before I think through things. But then if we look at other people with respect and we hear what they want to say before we before we make a judgment, then that might be easier to sort of resolve certain tensions that may come up if you just like, you're older, you're younger.
Or you
I don't
take
want
a
to listen
step
to
back
you.
to try to understand someone else's perspective.
Yeah, correct.
I think that's a beautiful suggestion. Respect.
RESPECT. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Kani and Kay Key, for your time today to be here. Thank you all for listening in. See you on the next episode of On Diversity. On Diversity is a podcast inspired by the Institute of Policy Studies Managing Diversity's research program. Please follow or subscribe to the On Diversity podcast to get notified when we have a new episode. You can visit our website ipscommons.sg for more info.